Dear colleagues, let us introduce a Slovak new religious movement and a neo-pagan group which we decided to anonymize as the Slavic natives. We also consider this paper as our humble attempt and contribution, uh, which could show you how helpful could be religious studies with and cultural heritage studies, how the perspectives of cultural heritage studies could bring more light to to questions of new religious studies, and vice versa, how the perspective of new religious studies can uh, answer particular questions related to cultural heritage studies. Let us tell you a few words about the methodology of our research. We follow the standard principles of chief research. We did over 20 of interviews with participants. We did participant observations on several events of the group. One of them you can see on this photography is the celebration of summer solstice.
And now some general informations about Slavic natives as a movement. As I already mentioned, Slavic natives is a Slovak new religious movement which was established in late 90s, and its main goal is reconstructing of pre-Christian Slavic or later Slovak cultural and spiritual heritage. The movement was the founder of the movement is the charismatic leader Veleslav. I anonymized him as Veleslav. It's not his real name, and movement is very popular amongst youths, about the young people who are the vast majority of its members. As members of Slavic natives claim, they perform rituals which are based on ancient traditions of old Slavs and old Slovaks. I should introduce some key concepts, emic key concepts of Slavic natives. The first one is original natural spirituality. Members of Slavic natives consider culture as a continuation of nature. So there is no strict border between these two concepts, but culture is rather a continuation of nature, and this continuation should be, in ideal case, moderated by spirituality. That's what Slavic natives do. They are trying to find harmony between nature and their culture, their lifestyle. Another crucial concept is new old spirituality, or in Slovak language novodrevné duchovno, what is in fact invented tradition in Hobsbawm's terms. And this tradition is invented especially by the leader, by Veleslav, who is drawing from scientific sources, from scientific literature, from fields as ethnology, history, archaeology, or linguistics. And on the base of this material, he reconstructs the rituals, and I could say even the worldview of imagined ancestors. But it is important to add that he reconstructs it with a certain rate of invention. He claims that his spirituality connect, he himself spirituality connect with some spiritual source which which gives him information about the way how the ritual should be conducted. And however, the ritual is maybe different than he found in, let's say, ethnographic literature. The meaning is, as he claims, the same as all ancestors understood. The followers of Slavic natives are convinced that there still exist residuals of original culture, and they are obligated to help to help with continuity of this of these residuals, to bear them on their shoulders to the future. It is very interesting that Slavic native members really consider themselves as actually the elite and exclusive group of few people. There is maybe 200 core members of the movement who can bring the heritage from the history, the spiritual wisdom from the past to the future. They themselves, they consider themselves as a cultural heritage, as you can see the sentence from my 19 years old informant who told actually we ourselves are cultural heritage. The question is whether those people are not the worshippers of the cult of cultural heritage. There could be many examples of the process of adding spiritual meanings of various material and immaterial cultural heritage artifacts, which coming from Slovak ethnic culture. I can use a lot of examples how something from is the culture heritage object became sacralized object. But to make a long story short, I would tell you about the story about the koncovka. What is primitive shepherd's flute without host? And we don't have any evidences about any religious or ritual use of this instrument. I will show you, this is my souvenir from my field research, and I will show you how does it sound. It's not very difficult to play on it. So this instrument, as I already told, which is instrument which was used only for musical purposes, became, in terms of Slavic natives, became the very important ritual instrument. So we can see that this flute became requisite for rituals, for spiritual exercises, for meditations. The work with this flute, or this flute has prescribed way of worshipping. The player has to worship the koncovka by touching its chakras, or by turning the flute to the east, west, north, and south, etc., etc. So, koncovka is also the part of ritual life of Slavic natives, and it's important to say that ritual is a central instrument for the actualization of imagined past and cultural heritage in community of Slavic natives. The rituals take place several times per year, especially by the occasion of summer or winter solstice, welcoming celebrations of spring, or they organize also rites or conduct also rites of passage. The ritual is in the community of Slavic natives the platform for explanation of very wide thematic scope of Slavic natives' ideology, topics as ecology, spirituality, ethnicity, policy, or social issues, and the ritualist platform for socialization to particular understanding of cultural heritage. Let's go to the important part of the research, and that's the question of interpretation of cultural heritage and its everyday life consequences. The ritual provides in Slavic native movement provides experience of exclusive community of all tradition continuators who are bringing the old wisdom to current times. Uh, we can clearly observe idealized interpretations of the past, and these interpretations bring the very practical consequences for the lifestyle of Slavic native members, and very practical consequences for their everyday life. They wearing, I mean, on everyday basis, Slavic-like clothes, they performing rituals, they playing traditional musical instruments, doing traditional crafts or gardening, but they also, many of them leaving the cities and they buying land for farming, or they joining existing farming communities. Moreover, through the discovering of so-called hidden spiritual meanings, actually it's ascribing or adding of spiritual meanings to the traditional folk culture, this process has effect in strengthening their Slovak or even Slavic identity. Many times we can witness very nationalistic perspectives in terms of Slovak nationalism or even wider Slavic nationalism. Some conclusions. Amongst the Slavic natives, we could see the selective tradition in terms of David Scott. So we can spot the criteria for selection of such elements of cultural heritage which members of Slavic natives consider as valuable. These elements has to have something in common with nature. They have to be Slovak or Slavic. They have to have Slovak or Slavic origin, and they have to have rural origin. For example, urban folk or folk culture elements or artifacts are somehow rejected because they are not in such a discrete connection with nature. Then there is something what I called ritual cosmologization of cultural heritage. It means that cultural heritage, the selected elements or artifacts of cultural heritage, become a constitutional point or constitutional part of explanation models which explain surrounding environmental, natural, political, social, spiritual, or whatever reality on the one hand, and one's individual identity on the other hand. So we can think about cultural heritage and its role in context, for example, with Clifford Geer's model of reality, that flute konzovka, which I showed you, is actually the model of reality, the model which can explain many things in wider surrounding reality. Another thing is religious cult of cultural heritage. We can see the selected artifacts of cultural heritage or objects of cultural heritage are sacralized. They gaining religious meanings and they becoming the object of religious cult. So we can ask whether we could speak about kind of cultural heritage theism. I'm a little bit inspired with Bruman, who wrote about cultural heritage agnosticism. It's slightly another topic, but it could be inspirative to think about cultural heritage theism. And the last thing is that in terms of Slovak natives, preserving the heritage from the past means, in their terms, it means securing particular spiritual or religious knowledge for the future. Thank you for your attention and wish you a nice and pleasant rest of the conference.